Okay, what up? It's your boy, Seven, out here breaking down this Tao Te Ching, probably the greatest book I've ever read. And in my opinion, greatest book ever written by a single person. If Lao Tzu was even a single person, or if Lao Tzu was even a person at all, who knows? Kind of like on that Shakespeare shiggity where we don't really know what the blank happened and who cares because the words are the words, you know what I mean? But I gotta tell y'all, 2021 has been a difficult year to say the very least. And I've learned a lot as a young man. In an attempt to grow and heal and put myself in the best possible situation or the best possible mindset for the coming struggles of 2022, I think we all feel them. I decided that I would take an oath of celibacy as long as I break down this super poem verse by verse. And only then will I reconsider, I guess, the need for sex and all kinds of other carnal desires in my life. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm a dude who loves to party, who loves to get down, all that stuff. But I believe that in order for me to let these lessons in for real, because this is a book I've read a million times, I need to give something up. So here we are, the first verse, probably the craziest verse in my opinion. They're all crazy and they have all resonated with me in different times of my life. But this first one is probably the one that most people, think of when they think about the Tao Te Ching. And I'm here to break it down in a goofy, weird kind of way. You know what I'm saying? I'm a free person, and I'm sitting here putting my thoughts together. I got a little drink to kind of loosen up the nerves. You know what I'm saying? And I think that we can get somewhere with some meditation and reflection. Um, and that's pretty much all I really want to say about the world right now. Even though I could probably say a whole lot more. And I know y'all agree. But the thing about the Tao Te Ching is that it's it's one of those things where it's like the more you talk about it, the less you know. So this is kind of a tool to allow people who maybe haven't been exposed to it, or people who have, read it a million times, to kind of have a free open space to like just kind of think about this in a modern sense. Because the beauty of this knowledge is that it's timeless, and that's why I'm here today. So let's get right into it, because honestly, it's going to take a long time to explain, and I could probably talk about it for hours, but let's give it a whip. A whip and a rip. You heard? No. So I'm gonna read it one time, and then I'm gonna come back and go stanza by stanza, line by line. Excuse me if I messed that up. All right. So the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. Nameless is the beginning of heaven and earth. Named is the mother of 10,000 things. Free from desire, one can see the mystery. Ever desiring, one can only see the manifestations. These two spring from the same source, but differ in name. This appears as darkness. Darkness within darkness. The gate to all understanding. What the fuck does that mean? You know what I'm saying? I am just beginning to break that down. Probably the most esoteric thing you could possibly say. But there's a lot to it, obviously, So let's run it back and break this down. All right. Line number 1. The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. And I'm going to add in line 2. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. So what does that mean, right? How can anything that doesn't have a name be the ultimate path of living and thinking? Well, as I get deeper into the book and you read more of the poems, some of the earlier poems become more clear. So it's definitely a book that you can't read one time. But let me give you a little bit of a hint. When I think of the Tao, the thinking of the Tao is a reminder to not think at all. There's nothing that I can really say that will encapsulate what it really means, The only thing I can really do is point to the experience and feelings that I've had thinking about these higher concepts. Think beyond God. Think beyond the universe. Think what God came from. It's like if God could exist before God existed and created all existence, what would be there? Nothing. And by grace, all things exist from nothing. And it's kind of hard to think about because you're like, well, shoot, how am I supposed to think about nothing when my entire life is everything? Well, that's what we're trying to figure out, right? Line 3, the Nameless is the beginning of heaven and earth. The name, line 4, is the mother of 10,000 things. Again, all things come from nothing, right? We have awareness. We have a consciousness, right? Our thoughts, our ideas, our food, our everything comes from a place inside that doesn't really exist. There's something from which all new ideas, all new everything comes from. And right now we are just experiencing the infinitesimal nth number of iteration of the same thing happening over and 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 over again. We experience it as life, but we can see rocks and stars that all existed before us. And before that, there were rocks and stars that made those rocks and stars. And eventually, it's like, unless there were rocks and stars forever, how can how can they exist? There has to be something in the beginning, you know what I mean? But the Tao is trying to say that there is nothing in the beginning. And that's the hardest thing to understand because we are something. So when they say in this fourth line, the named of the mother, or the named is the mother of 10,000 things, they're saying that anything we know is particular. It's like we can't really ever know the unknowable because it's unknowable, right? Let's keep going because it all connects the more you read. Free from desire, one can see the mystery. Ever desiring, one can only see the manifestations. So this line makes a lot of sense because basically it's saying if you live in desire, meaning you want things in life and you pursue things in life, which is something that we all do in life, right? You have to understand that the only thing you're gonna see are the things that you see. And it's easy to forget that things come from nothing, and that you come from nothing, and that you will eventually return to nothing. There's a mystery to life, that void that exists in all things that you can never forget. And what Lao Tzu is saying is once you see it, you understand the mystery of the universe. But it's like there's a beauty to the mystery. There's like a grace to the mystery. There's like you can be grateful for being here at all and realizing that to be here is the most magical, beautiful thing that any of us will ever do, period. Like anything else is just duty, it's just life, but it's like divine duty, you know what I mean? It's a cosmic fart, so to speak. Because the real beauty of life is living itself, because from void becomes a manifestation. When you think about life as just life, it's hard to think about death as just death. And death, in my opinion, is more than an absence of life. It's a resting of life, a stilling of life, a transfer of life into a grand manifestation that other people can experience, but is for us to walk away from. But maybe I'm getting a little ahead of myself because this stuff is like, you know what I'm saying? So these two spring from the same source but differ in name. This appears in darkness. Manifestations, life, the mystery, everything else that we can't explain, that is obviously a direct influence on the life that we observe, all the random stuff, the way the world is, everything, the way we think, literally everything come from this same place, which is darkness. I like to think of the darkness as consciousness or void or the untangible, unknowable thing from which all ideas come from? Like, where does your thought come from before you have a thought? You know, thoughts appear in our mind in this like soft space in our brain, but like, where does it go? Where does it come from? How do we experience it? All these things. All of this is the consciousness. And there's no real way to describe it without saying it's darkness. There's no light in my head. There's no anything in my head. Yet I can still think of things and reflect on the things that I see, all the external experiences that I experience. You know what I mean? It's all together. It's all one thing. Now, again, this probably makes no sense if this is your first experience with the Tao Te Ching, and I recommend you read it ahead, of me, and you might reflect more with this poem. But really, it's all here. Once you come back, it's all here, man. So, all things appear in darkness, right? But it's darkness within the darkness. So it's like even me thinking about this, talking about this, the space that I go to think about what not thinking would be like is still on this side of the true source of everything, the Tao, There's no way to experience the Tao directly. It's something that you have to look at and appreciate from one side of the fence. And it's a good thing because it could only be infinitely complicated. There's nothing to understand really because it's too deep. And that's why Lao Tzu says it is the gate to all understanding. The person that lives naturally and isn't thinking about all the things in their head or the world around them and just acts with instinct and life, they know more than most people. Think about like a dog. Like a dog lives life like perfectly. All it does is eat, sleep, shit, and love on its owner, or its pack, or whatever. It's innocent to its own instinct. Even when it like kills and hunts, it's doing something that nature has put into it through millions of years of repetition and consciousness through genetics and all kinds of other things to make it do what it does. But it's not thinking, oh man, I gotta really, speed up how I catch this fucking rabbit. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not trying to progress like humans do. It's not trying to evolve like humans do. It's content the way it is. It does what it does. And think about it. Like you can hurt a dog's feelings on accident by not feeding it or whatever. But then you show it love and it forgets any of those negative emotions that it felt in that moment because it's living in the present moment. There is an emptiness in a dog's brain that allows it to live in the moment. That is darkness. It's the space in which things exist. The dog's life is present. Therefore, the dog has no worries. The dog feels its worries. The dog feels its fear and its anger, but then it feels its happiness. Then it feels its excitement when it runs. Then it feels full when it eats, There's it's like something super beautiful to the way animals live. Because they're living without fear. Well, I just contradicted myself. They are not living without fear. They're living without what's the word? Thought, movement of the mind, So let me kind of put this more in context with a modern person, right? I'm a person who thinks about everything way too much, like way too much, because I'm always trying to be the best. I'm always trying to be better. I'm always trying to get my head up over the bar and make sure everybody can see that I got over the bar. And that's a flaw in myself, because who's really looking? I mean, other people can see me do these things, but what does it mean that I can lift more weight or do more push-ups or run faster than any other person? There's always going to be somebody faster than me, stronger than me, better than me, longer PP than me. You know what I mean? It's like it doesn't matter, because no matter how I align myself in the spectrum of the world, I'll always be in the middle, and you will be too, because there are some outliers in some disciplines, but or things, so to speak, particular things is what Lao Tzu would say. But like an Elon Musk, right? He's really good at math and science and money, but he's also socially awkward over here. So it's like he's still just a human, at the end of the day. We're all in the middle. And we create these extensions of ourselves and these expectations to be more than really all we really are. And it's like, if you can settle in your heart that all you are is a human, living a human experience, however it manifests, positive or negative, then nothing matters. The pain of not getting what you wanted from a partner, the love that you wanted, the affection or the job or the terrible, awful, traumatic things that happen to you, they don't matter, because you realize that it's all a part of being human. And I come from being a conscious human. I come from a place beyond being a human. So essentially he's saying, it's like there's no way to know the ultimate path in life, which is the Tao, the way. But we all experience it on a daily basis, And that's crazy to me. It's like you don't have to know the Tao to know the Tao. And it's too confusing to really put into words. And I think that's what Lao Tzu was really trying to say in his first chapter. Everything that I feel, it is what it is. And it's the way it is. And I have faith in the way things are, because I know that if all things come from darkness, and I come from darkness, according to Lao Tzu, then I am everything. Everything is me. I have no need to really identify with the hate and negative emotions when I can live in compassion and love and simplicity in my heart. It's about the internal experience, the way you talk to yourself. When you realize the futility of life and the how fragile it is, and how quickly and how close we are to darkness, every single one of us, you don't really you realize how important it is to enjoy your life and live your life, because when it's done, it's done. And I can't really speak on to what it's going to be like after that for any of us. You know what I mean? So that's really it, darkness within darkness. But going back to these first couple lines to kind of wrap up, in the beginning, seek not to understand, you know. Think about Lao Tzu's words like any other form of media, like a movie or like a song. You know, you're listening to a song. If you're actively listening and enjoying a song, you're not trying to anticipate the next drum hit or the next drop. You know, you're not trying to figure out when the piano comes in or whatever. You're listening to it and letting life, music, you know, happen to you. That's how you have to live your life, is like manifestations are coming constantly in this infinite moment, and you need to just kind of go with the flow, literally, like just go with the flow. Trying to seek a name for the way things are is futile. You'll never find the perfect name. Somebody already thought of it. And even the word, the Tao, is just like, it's just a Chinese word for the way, you know what I mean? Like nobody really knows what it's called. That's just the word that they chose. And it literally translates like as the way, you know? It's a name, but it's like it's a path. But it's like also it's like it's a pointing. It's not the thing. They can't put a name on the thing. And I mean, God is another way, is like equal to Tao in my opinion. But it's like even then it's like God is just a word. Does God have a real name, you know? So it's like the answer is like yes and no. You know, it's like you can't really say that God doesn't have a name because there's no way to know. And you can't say if God has a name because it doesn't, you know. So let me read this poem one more time just to wrap up so y'all can meditate on this, you know what I'm saying? So, the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. Nameless is the beginning of heaven and earth. The named is the mother of 10,000 things, which is another way of saying all particular things. Free from desire, one can see the mystery. Ever desiring, one can only see the manifestations. These two spring from the same source, but differ in name. They appear in darkness. They appear as darkness. A darkness within darkness. A gate to all understanding. Excuse me, the gate to all understanding. So literally, it's like he's basically saying, it's like, if you want to understand, close this book right now. You're not going to understand. Let it go. And it's like, you'll get more lessons from letting it go and giving up on trying to understand anything in this world faster than any person that tries to beat their head against the chalkboard to figure something out. The older I get, you know, the more BS I go through, the less power I realize I have in this world. And the only thing I can really control is this instrument, this body-mind instrument. But there's two bodies. There's the body, you know, and then there's the mind. There's two bodies. So I ask you, are you in control of both of your bodies? Are you actually constantly thinking like, am I going to pick up this thought or am I going to leave it on the ground? Am I going to pick up this worry or am I going to leave it? Am I going to pick up this fork and eat? You know, you got to think like you have to add physicality to the mind, because the mind is a physical thing. Because you can still be aware of your mind even when you stop thinking. And that's something that you have to experience in meditation. And I think anybody can achieve that. It isn't always something that comes immediately, especially with a beginner, but it's there. And I implore you to explore and meet that person who's waiting to meet you on the inside, you know? So literally, like, if you going through some shit, bro, fuck it, cause it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We're all going through stuff. Life is the way it is, and all we can do is live. You know, pain is a part of life. So is suffering. You can learn to love the suffering. And that's not to say fetishizing it. There's an acceptance that you have to have with the pain. And that's what I'm trying to teach myself right now is like, I'm a dude who has been in many relationships and have never really felt satisfied with the experience of it, because I have all these preconceived notions of like what I want from it, who I'm dating, da 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 da. Like, that's a big issue in my heart is women, because I date women, you know. And I've never been able to connect because I have this piece of me that is trying to project onto these other people, but they're just being them, you know. And that's the beauty of like women from where I'm standing, is like women are able to be them a lot easier than dudes. And I don't know if everybody would agree with that, but from where I'm standing, man, my manifestations don't give a blank about me, you know. These people I spent my time with, they don't care about me. I'm disposable to them, you know. And I think that's beautiful, man, because they can pick it up and leave it and move on to the next thing and live their life to the fullest and meet new people and find love in other places. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sitting here bitter about all the stuff that I've gone through in my life, and they can move on and find new things, you know. And I know everybody goes through stuff, and everybody, you know, it's like, I'm not trying to say that people don't feel anything and that women don't feel anything, you know. It's just like, as a singular consciousness, it's like, it's all about how we think about the world around us. And if you're thinking that these people need to be a certain way in your life, your significant other, whoever they may be, like, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. Like you're doing it wrong, you know? So Lao Tzu says, desire nothing. Only then will you realize how silly it is to desire anything at all. Things come and they go, you know? And that's not to say that you can't have intention. It's saying you have your intentions and you let it go. You know? You live your life. You pick the things that you want from it to experience. You experience them or you don't. There's a plethora of beauty in life in just being here. You know? I can think of a million things I'm grateful for in a moment, you know? Like, I'm crying every day on this journey of like spiritual healing and understanding. And I'm learning a lot too. So like, sorry if my breakdowns aren't perfect, you know, off jump, but this is my experience, you know. And I think that a lot of people are just living life thinking that they don't deserve anything and they aren't anything. And it's like, you're right. But can you let go of the need to be anything? Suddenly, being nothing is worth more than anything that anyone else says that I am. Because if I can accept that I'm nothing, then I don't have to be anything. Then I can rest. I can do whatever I want to do. There's no need to compare and compete. I'm the earth. I'm the soil. I'm everything, you know? Everything comes from me. In my mind, but also physically. I come from everything. Therefore, everything comes from me. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, that's the first verse. That's the first chapter. Sorry if any of this went over anybody's head. I'm kind of also speaking from, the future a little bit with this book. But stick with me. I promise it'll all make sense. Or at least begin to make sense, because you can't really make sense, But, so thank you. Thank you for spending some time with me and thinking about this stuff. All right. Also, Happy New Year. Happy New Year. All right. Peace.